Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Varadhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Teva Vanachari Yamuna Yamuna Teva Vanachari Yamuna Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Nitai go Haribo, 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 Haribo. जो मिस्टर बापन हम सुप्रगजकाचार्य स्तोत्र सत श्री दिवांगे सुपोषण भक्त ने स्वामी शिल प्रभुपाद की जय इसकन फाउंडचार्य दिवांगे शिल प्रभुपाद की जय जो मिस्टर बापन हम सुप्रगजकाचार्य स्तोत्र सत श्री दिवांगे शिल भक्ति सिंह गोस्वामी शिल प्रभुपाद की जय अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय नाम चाय शिल हरिदास ठाकुर की जय प्रेम से कौश कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गिरिराज शिवसदि गौर भक्तों की जय श्री श्रीवाद कृष्ण गोपियों श्याम कुंद राधा कुंद गिरि गोवर्धन की जय वृंदावन धाम की जय नवदेव धाम की जय महापू धाम की जय गंगा माई की जय यमुना माई की जय भक्त देवी की जय तुलसी देवी की जय सामवेद भक्त वृंद की जय निताय गोप्रानंदे all glories to the Samu devotees 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 all glories Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga all glories to Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna and welcome to Nectar of Devotion class. We are going to be covering chapter 36. Let us repeat the invocation and the glorification. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Nana Shastra Vicharane Kanipuno Saddharma Samstapako Lokanam Hitakarino Tribhuvane Manyo Sharanya Karo Radha Krishna Padaravinda Bhajana Nandena Mataliko Vande Rupa Sanatano Raghuyugo Shri Jiva Gopal Home. Offer my respectful obeisance unto the six Goswamis, namely Shri Sanatan Goswami, Shri Rupa Goswami, Shri Raghunath Bhatt Goswami, Shri Raghunath Das Goswami, Shri Jiva Goswami, and Shri Gopal Bhatt Goswami, who are very expert in scrutinizingly studying all the revealed scriptures with the aim of establishing eternal religious principles for the benefit of all human beings. Thus, they are honored They are honored all over three worlds and are worth taking shelter of, because they are absorbed in the mood of the gopis and are engaged in the transcendental loving service of Radha and Krishna. So today we're continuing with the Western Ocean second wave. This second wave is covering Dasya Ras. Last week we covered Shanta Ras, the neutral stage or neutral Ras. And now today we're going to cover Dasya Ras. And this will continue from chapters 36 to 40. Different aspects of Dasya will be described. Very, very wonderful chapter, chapter 36. So just to connect, last week we also shared this concept of the yoga ladder, which we covered in Bhagavad Gita. The living entities are uh, evolving, their consciousness evolves from Vikarma, Ugra Karma, right on the bottom of the ladder, to Karma Kanda, to Karma Yoga, to Jnana Yoga, to Dhyana Yoga. And at each stage of this yoga ladder, the living entity achieves different desired goals. But ultimately, what the living entity is seeking for is his eternal relationship with Krishna, this eternal loving relationship with Krishna. And by serving a pure devotee, by coming in contact with a pure devotee and getting his mercy, that living entity, no matter where he is on this yoga ladder, can be connected to the path of devotional service. So it is our good fortune that we have been connected to Srila Prabhupada and the disciplic succession coming through Lord Krishna and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And we have received the fortune of bhakti or devotional service, the practice of devotional service. So then we start practicing devotional service. And the objective is to intensify this attitude of service. The quantity of it, the quality of it, the motive behind it, and the impetus that drives the attitude of service. And as we evolve in our service, as our service becomes more and more pure, free from the modes of material nature and the different anarthas that are obstacles to that service, we ultimately rise up on the path of spiritual life, and we come to the perfection of Bhava Bhakti, either Vaidhi Bhava Bhakti or Raganuga Bhava Bhakti. And then we achieve Prema. And the chapter 36 is right up on that level where the living entity has now perfected his life, and he's entering into the realm of Sudha Bhakti, of pure devotional service. He's entering into the spiritual world, engaging in the service of Krishna. On the left hand side, we find that the living entity degrades himself due to the attitude of exploitation, whether it be the material resources, whether it be other living entities, or whether it be his own mind and senses. But the more we exploit the resources and the energy of the Lord, the more we degrade ourselves and become unhappy. And the more we cultivate the attitude of service to please the Supreme Lord, the more we become happy. There's basically only two options we have. And we find in Srila Prabhupada's own life, Srila Prabhupada, he only asked his spiritual master one question: how can I serve you? And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj had given him the instruction, and he had taken that instruction to preach Krishna consciousness to the Western world. Srila Prabhupada took that instruction to heart and made that his life and soul. That was Prabhupada's life and soul and his life's mission, to give Krishna consciousness to others. In the conditional stages, coming in from the bottom of this ladder at different stages where we may connect in devotional service, it is described that there's 81 types of devotional service. In fact, even more than 81 different permutations of devotional service that are mixed with the modes. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, text 29, verse 10, it is described in the purport. Srila Prabhupada says, devotional service in the modes of ignorance, passion, and goodness can be divided into 81 categories. There are different devotional activities such as hearing, chanting, remembering, worshipping, offering prayers, rendering service, and surrendering everything. And each of them can be divided into three qualitative categories. There is hearing in the mode of passion, in the mode of ignorance, and in the mode of goodness. Similarly, there is chanting in the mode of ignorance, passion, and goodness, etc. 3 multiplied by 9 equals 27, and when again multiplied by 3 becomes 81. So there are the three modes, and these three modes can influence our devotional practice. And for us to advance in spiritual life, we need to be conscious of the type of devotional service we are rendering. It's not that I am a devotee and I'm now serving Krishna and therefore I'm going back to the spiritual world. Yes, and we already discussed by Kripa Siddhi, by mercy, we can go back to the spiritual world. But we need to qualify ourselves, and that qualification is devotional service. But it's not just devotional service that's mixed with three modes of material nature. It is not Mishra Bhakti. It has to be Suddha Bhakti. It has to be pure devotional service, not just devotional service. So it's glorious to be engaged in devotional service, but it is more glorious to understand that the goal is pure devotional service and to strive very sincerely to strive for that. And if we sincerely strive for pure devotional service, that in itself is perfection. Whether it takes us one life, two lives, 10 lives, or billion lifetimes, it really doesn't matter. The objective is I'm trying to render pure service to Krishna. So before we get into this chapter, where Srila Rupa Goswami really shares with us the different types of Dasya Bhakti, the different types of Dasya Ras, different types of devotees in the different classification of having this mood of service to Krishna. He delineates many wonderful categories. Before we get into those categories, I like to shed a little more light on devotional service in these different categories of ignorance, passion, and goodness so that we can appreciate and understand that there can be even obstacles within the realm of devotional service or within the spiritual realm. It's not that I'm practicing Krishna consciousness and therefore I'm perfect. So there is devotional service mixed with tamasa, with ignorance. And in the third canto, Kapila Dev also describes that we want to associate with devotees who are engaged in at least Suddha Sattva, at least the higher modes of devotion. Because if we associate with devotees who engage with the lower tendencies, even in the realm of devotional service, they can, by that association, it can hinder our spiritual practice. So there are different gradations as the purport and Srila Prabhupada describes that if you take the three modes and you permutate the three modes, 3 to the power 3 is 9. 3 times 3, 9, and then 27. Different permutations of the modes, they have different characteristics or influence on one's devotion. So there's bhakti in tamasa, which means a high grade, like tamasa, which is called tamasa adama. There's tamasa madhyam, where there's tamasa and passion, and then there's tamasa uttam, where there is some sattva mixed with that tamasa, different grades. So in the first grade, tamasa adama, where it's the lowest grade, there the motive is with a desire to destroy others, driven by unlimited desires to lord over. So even with the tendency, even with having the tendency of devotional service, one can have that motive. And the symptoms are anger, grudges, harshness, due to greed of material want. And the example is Diti, who performed the Pumsavana Samskar to destroy and kill Indra. So even though she performed a devotional spiritual activity, a samskar, but the motive behind it was to kill Indra. So that is of a lower grade of bhakti. Then there is tamasa and rajas, the medium category. And there the motive is with a show of honesty, but so you're showing honesty, you really practice like you're practicing spiritual life, but internally with intention to cheat others. And there the symptom is hypocrisy, arrogance, fault finding, shamelessness, and a show of or showing off of pride. Mm, and there's a Sanskrit terms there. So example is Duryodhan. He called Krishna for a feast, mm, to obtain the favor of Krishna. So it seemed like, externally, if somebody had to see, say, wow, Duryodhan is so amazing. Just see how he's actually transformed, he's changed. Mm, He's serving Krishna. Or Jarasan, who was ready to offer any charity to Krishna. So externally, it seems like they are really transforming and engaging in devotional service, but the intention was really, it was duplicity, hypocritical. They had ill intention. Then tamasa mixed with sattvam. That's out. The motive is out of competition by seeing someone else perform such service. So we become jealous, ambitious. Mm. And Daksha was worshipping the Lord to compete with Lord Shiva. So this type of mundane or jealousy, competition is in devotional service is not healthy. Then in Rajasa Bhakti, we have the same influence. So Rajas mixed with Tamas, Rajas mixed with Rajas, and then Rajas mixed with Sattvam. So in Rajas mixed with Tamas, the lowest category, there the motive is with a desire to obtain sense gratification, greed to please the tongue, the eyes, the ears, the skin, etc. And the example is Kubja, worshipping the Lord. She wanted the Lord to satisfy her lusty desires. So even though she, approached the Lord and wanted to engage in service, but really it was for her lusty desires. Then Rajas mixed with Rajas. There the motive is with a desire to obtain name, fame, bank balance, become learned, and there the symptom is ambitious activities to become recognized and glorified directly or indirectly, be surrounded by people to plan and arrange for proclaiming one's own glory. So one really wants pratishta, fame, adoration, glory. And the example was Dhruva. And even though the example is Dhruva, it described that in the beginning, Dhruva had this tendency. He wanted to show his stepmother that he can, achieve greatness. But on his as he practiced and he got the mercy of Narad Muni and the Supreme Lord, he really got purified of the lower tendencies of devotional service. Then Rajasa Uttama, Rajasa mixed with Sattvam. There, one is with a desire to accumulate wealth and material objects, so greed for new and new objects, even within devotional service. And similar same example is over Dhruva. He wanted a planet better than Lord Brahma. So he wanted an object, wanted some material object, and that was in the mode of Rajaswat Sattva. And then we come to a higher level of devotion. At least we should strive to come to this level, but really we want to come to the level of Sattvam in the highest category. So Sattva mixed with Tamas, there the motive is with a desire to destroy previous sins. That means one is engaging in devotional service and one is engaging in service with the desire to purify one's life. And generally, many people, most are in this category that I'm chanting, I'm serving to purify. fearful, repentful. And this is the symptoms. An example is Indra. After killing Vritasura, he performed Ashwamedha Yagya to become free from that sin. Then Sattvam, in Sattvam mixed with Rajas. There we have the motive is with the desire to obtain liberation. We're looking for peace. We want peace of mind. We want to become liberated. An example was Gajendra. He was practicing devotional service in this category. And then finally, Sattvam mixed with Sattvam, which is the highest category, Sattvam Uttama. There's with a desire to carry out mm, his prescribed duties as a duty. So you really seeing your devotional practice as a duty. You are bound for the pleasure of Guru and Krishna. You're seeing that it's my duty to serve them. And the motive of the symptoms is that you're careful in executing your prescribed duties, and you are devoted to those prescribed duties. Example Yudhishthir Maj, and we find even Govinda in Chaitanya Charitamrita. We find that he was totally committed to serving Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by massaging him. And even though Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was blocking the pathway, Govinda, he was happy to cross over Lord Chaitanya to serve the Lord. But after serving the Lord, he did not cross over to take lunch. So here we find Govinda, his focus was, I'll do anything to serve the Supreme Lord, even if it means crossing over the Lord's body. But for my senses, I will not cross over the Supreme Lord. So that's a beautiful example. So in summary, we find devotional service can be practiced in different modes, mixed with different modes. And we don't want to engage in Mishra Bhakti, mixed Bhakti, especially with tamas, with a mode of ignorance, which is focused on others in a very destructive way. We don't want to focus on devotional service mixed with rajas, which is focusing on one's own self. And we want to focus at least to come to the level of sattva bhakti, where we focus on duty and action. But the goal, this should be the springboard, the platform to go to the goal of Suddha Bhakti, which is really focused on pleasing Guru and Krishna. We want to serve with the intention of pleasing Guru, Krishna, and the Vaishnavas. So, in the beginning of this chapter, Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Prabhupada in Nectar Devotion discusses three different perspectives to Dasya Bhakti. And the first one is Sridhar Swami, the original commentator on Srimad Bhagavatam. He says that Priti comes between Santa and Dasya. Last week we discussed Santa and Dasya. Nama Komodi says Priti comes at Dasya, and Priti means affection. And Sudava Goswami says it is in Shanta. So one may resolve these apparent differences of opinion by noting that Priti, affection for Krishna, is in every mellow, right? In every mellow, which means from Santa Dasya all the way to Madhurya, the affection for the Lord is all there. It is not that it's in one and not in the other. So affection is also in Shanta, but it is not strong enough to make its presence felt until one achieved Dasya. So consequently, even though all the rasas contain Priti, Srila Rupa Goswami singles out servitude as Priti ras because it is the first stage in which one feels the effect of Priti, active service. And Srila Prabhupada summarizes this by saying that in any case, this affection is relished by devotees in different transcendental tastes, and therefore the general name of this state is affection or pure affection for Krishna. So the underlining basis of dasya is Priti affection, and the it is revealed through active service. It is shown through active service. In Shanta, there is no active service. But in Dasya Ras, there is this practical active service. There are two moods of Dasya. So there's two categories, two moods. One is Sambrama Priti, servitude with awe and reverence, and Gaurava Priti, servitude in more intimate mode as a son or person similarly dependent on Krishna. So you will find these two categories in Vaikunta, Dwarka, Mathura. In those realms, you'll find this attitude of serving with awe and reverence. Whereas in Vrindavan, you'll find this service uh, without the awe and reverence, very intimate. And in the conditional stage of our devotional service, Srila Prabhupada said, for example, with the deities, we need to serve the deities predominantly with the mood of awe and reverence, with that attitude. And as we advance to pure devotional service, then our true relationship, original relationship will revive. So, Sambrava Priti, reverential servitude, devotees engage in servitude are attached to Krishna in the affection of reverence. So there's priti, there's affection, there's attraction, there's attachment, but it is based on a reverential mood. And there's two stimulus. Just like in Shantaras, there were different stimulus that we discussed that allows one to come to that level of Shanta. So similarly, even in Dasya, there's two stimulus that allows one to progress from Shantaras to Dasya. So the first one is Vishaya Alambana, which is Krishna as a stimulus for reverential servitude. Krishna was also in Shantaras. Sri Rupa Goswami describes how Krishna's form and quality stimulate reverential servitude. Just like when you look at Krishna's beautiful form, if you just meditate on Krishna's beauty and you contemplate, Krishna is such a beautiful person, and it revives, it sparks this impetus to serve such a beautiful person. People love to serve, powerful, glorious, famous, beautiful, wealthy, knowledgeable, renowned personalities. And Krishna, he's Bhagavan. He has all these opulences. So if you contemplate on Krishna and Krishna's form, then that impetus can be revived, that impetus to serve. So Krishna's form, the inhabitants of Vrindavan used to say, Krishna is always manifest before us with a complexion like a blackish cloud. He holds a wonderful flute in his lotus hands. He is dressed in yellow silk and bedecked with peacock feather on his head. So sometimes Vishnu's form can also be a stimulus for some Sambrava Prichit Ras. But Daruka's statement in Lalita Madhava informs us that Krishna's form is far more powerful stimulant. Naturally, because Krishna's form is more human-like. People in this material world can relate to Krishna's form more than they can relate to Vishnu with forms. Then the qualities of Krishna, they can also be stimulus. The qualities of Krishna that stimulate reverential servitude. We find this example is also when Queen Rukmini was hearing the qualities of Krishna. She developed this attraction to Krishna just by hearing Krishna's qualities. Another devotee once said, "This supreme personality of Godhead, from whose body pores come millions of universes permanently rising, who is an ocean of mercy, who is the owner of inconceivable energies." So by meditating on the different qualities of Krishna, this also can be a stimulant to revive our service attitude. Then there's the Ashraya Alambana, the devotee as a stimulus for reverential servitude. Devotees who stimulate reverential servitude are called dasas, servants. They have the following characteristic traits. Prashrita, they are humble, modest souls who always glance downward and bend over in respectful deference. Nirdesha Vasha Varti. They are naturally inclined to engage their specific abilities in carrying out Krishna's order. Vivashta Bhakta, they are trustworthy and faithful. And Vinamrita Buddhi, they are always fully aware that Krishna is their master. So devotees can inspire service attitude. We find Srila Prabhupada was a classic perfect example, that just by Prabhupada's own example, he inspired people to serve. When Srila Prabhupada went to the West, he never instructed people to serve in terms of practical service. Mm. He he engaged them in chanting and hearing. And Prabhupada, in the beginning, cooked a Sunday feast himself. He bought the vegetables, prepared the vegetables, cooked the feast, served the feast, cleaned up afterwards, went into the kitchen to clean all the utensils and the pots. And Prabhupada never told them, please come help me. But by that attitude of selfless service to please the devotees, to please Krishna, naturally that inspired the devotees to come forward and say, can we please help? And Prabhupada, understanding that this will be beneficial for them, he said yes. And this is how he slowly engaged, very expertly engaged everyone in different services. So by his association, by his uh, relationships, by his wonderful attitude and relationship with Krishna, inspired service in others. Then there are four types of dasas, four types of servant: Adikrita das, Ashrita das, Parishad das, and Anugadas. So Adikrita das are demigods appointed to specific services in the material world. Ashrita das, devotees who have taken shelter of the Lord's protection. Parishada das, intimate ministers who render various personal services. And Anugadas, intimate followers of the Lord in Vraja and Dwarka. And Prabhupada explains in Nectar Devotion, the devotees of the Lord in servitude are divided in four classes: appointed servants, such as Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, who are appointed to control the material modes of passion ignorance; devotees in servitude who are protected by the Lord; devotees who are always associates; and devotees who are simply following in the footsteps of the Lord. And then Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, takes each one and gives different examples. So, Ashrita Das, devotees under the Lord's protection. My dear Krishna, O pleasure of Vrindavan, being afraid of this material existence, we have taken shelter of you, for you can completely protect us. We are well aware of your greatness. As such, we have given up our desires for liberation, have, and have and have taken shelter under your lotus feet. Since we have heard about your ever increasing transcendental love, we have voluntarily engaged ourselves in your transcendental service. This quotation establishes three types of uh, Arishta devotees, devotees under the protection of the Lord. So this quotation establishes three types of devotees. One is Sharangata, then Gyanichari, and Sevanishta. So those who take shelter of the Lord's protection due to fear of material existence, that quote is described, being afraid of this material existence, we have taken shelter of you, for you can completely protect us. This is Sharanagata devotee. Then there's a Gyanichari devotee, those who have realized the Brahman, but give up their desire for moksha and take shelter of Krishna, knowing him to be the original Brahman. And the quote that establishes that from that statement is, we are well aware of your greatness. As such, we have given up our desire for liberation and have taken shelter under your lotus feet. Then Seva Nishta, those who simply love Krishna and therefore have fixed desire to serve him. And the quotation is, since we have heard about your ever increasing transcendental love, we have voluntarily engaged ourselves in transcendental service. So you can see, the beauty of the way the Lord arranges is that he allows every living entity to return back to his shelter. Doesn't matter where you start, and doesn't matter what your desire is. Uh, you will find that on this path, whatever your desire is, if you are sincere and you recognize, you understand that we are part and parcel of Krishna, and I need to revive my loving relationship with Krishna and return back to his service. Srila Prabhupada would give so many examples, just like Prabhupada would give the example of the hand and the body. The hand is related to the body. So the hand should serve the stomach, the hand should serve the body. The hand cannot separately enjoy. Or we give the finger related to the hand. Your finger your finger, for it to have value, needs to be connected to your hand. So, like that, for us to have value, we need to be connected to Krishna. And it doesn't matter what our background is, it doesn't matter where we're coming from, what our past samskaras are. When we appreciate and understand that every single living entity is connected with Krishna, and Krishna is our supreme father, then we can start sincerely progressing towards that. So if we understand the fear of the material world, still we can take shelter of Krishna and serve Krishna. We are striving to realize Brahman. We can still take shelter of Krishna and serve Krishna. And if we really understand that ultimately it's all about pleasing Krishna, then we don't need to worry about all the other secondary um, aspects, and simply devote our life to serving Krishna. The Sharanagata devotee, those who take shelter out of fear. A Sharanagata servant is afraid of the material existence and is convinced that the Lord can protect him. Srila Rupa Goswami gives examples of Sharanagata. The first is the prayer of the Kalya serpent, who, whose fear of imminent death caused him to surrender to the Lord. The second is Aparada Bhajana. My dear Lord, I am ashamed to admit before you that I have carried out the orders of my masters named lust, anger, avarice, illusion, and envy. Sometimes I have carried out their orders in a way most abominable. Yet, in spite of my serving them so faithfully, they are not satisfied, nor are they kind enough to give me relief from their service. They are not even ashamed of taking service from me in that way. My dear Lord, O head of the Yadu dynasty, now I am now I have come to my senses, and I'm therefore taking shelter of your lotus feet. Please engage me in your service. So, this is a devotee who wants to come back to the shelter of the Supreme Lord, understanding his precarious situation in the material world. We discussed the devotees, Akrita Dasa, the demigods. They are clearly given the post in this material world to serve Krishna. So even though there may be so many demigods and they may have different tendencies, mixed devotion, but they dutifully perform their devotional service to Krishna in maintaining this material creation very, very diligently. Whereas in the material world, there are those who fear the material world, and they also realize their mistake, and then they want to serve and surrender to the Supreme Lord. Then the Gyanichari Bhakta, those who take shelter out of knowledge. A Gyanichari servant is a Brahman realized devotee and knows that the Lord is the origin of Brahman, and therefore renounces the desire of moksha and takes shelter of the Lord. As Srila Prabhupada says, there are many instances in the various Vedic writings of persons who were aspiring after liberation by speculative knowledge but gave up this process in order to take complete shelter under the lotus feet of Krishna. Sri Rupa Goswami gives two examples. The first is the sages of Namisharanya, who gave up their impersonal realization by hearing knowledge about the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the second example is from Padyavali, in which a former impersonal describes his attachment to Krishna. And then there is the Seva Nishta, those who take shelter out of love. So a Sharanagata was engaged in sense gratification. A Gyanichari was engaged in the process of liberation. But the Seva Nishta is attached to the Lord's service right from the beginning. So it's a more a more glorious and higher level of devotee. Srila Prabhupada says, those who from the very beginning of their self-realization attached devotional service are called Seva. Srila Rupa Goswami gives the example, my dear Lord, your transcendental qualities attract even liberated souls and carry them to the assembly of devotees, where your glories are constantly chanted. And observing all your transcendental qualities, I have also become attracted and have decided to detach my life to your devotional service. Seeing how the Lord attracts even the liberated souls, the Seva Nishta immediately dedicates his life to the Lord's service. The principal Seva Nishtas are Lord Shiva, King Indra, King Bahulasva, King Ishvaku, Shrutadev, and Pundrika. So different devotees are there that basically they realize that if Krishna can attract those who are involved in sense gratification, if Krishna can even attract those who are seeking liberation, who are liberated from this material world, then to really just render devotional service purely for the pleasure of Krishna with no motive, uh, that is so glorious, that is so wonderful. To have a master like Krishna, to have someone to serve like Krishna, that is so wonderful. So a Sevanishta, he understands that and he simply wants to render service to Krishna. Then we now go into the higher levels of devotees, the Parishada Das servants. They are personal servants. The Parisada Das are the Lord's ministers who also perform intimate personal services mm, and services to according to their particular situation, such as carrying messages, fanning the Lord. So according to their different appropriate, according personal appropriate service, they would perform. So depending on what role you have in that service as personal attendant to Krishna, you would perform that service. And an examples are given in the city of Dwarka. The following devotees are known as Krishna's close associates: Uddhava, Daruka, Satyaki, Shrutadev, Shatrujit, Nanda, Upananda, Bhadra. And among the Kuru dynasty, Bhishma, Maj Parikshit, Vidura are also known as close associates of Lord Krishna. So in Dwarka, Krishna has many associates, personal associates that serve Krishna in different ways. Like Daruka is Krishna's charioteer, Satyaki, they always with Krishna to guard Krishna. Uddhava, Krishna's minister. So in this way, and friend, so many wonderful personal attendants, personal associates of Krishna are there, and uh, they practically in love with Krishna through service. Their life and soul is simply to serve Krishna. Now, Srila Rupa Goswami describes these personal attendants, servants, their form and their mood. All the associates of Lord Krishna have lustrous bodily features, and their eyes are just like lotus flowers. They have sufficient power to defeat the strength of the demigods. And the specific feature of their persons is that they are always decorated with valuable ornaments. So they beautifully decorated and have very beautiful features. And their mood of devotional service, my dear Lord, your personal associates, headed by Uddhava, are always awaiting your order by standing at the entrance gate of Dwarka. They are mostly looking on with tears in their eyes and in enthusiasm of their service. They are not afraid even of the devastating fire generated by Lord Shiva. Their souls simply surrendered unto your lotus feet. So this personal servants of Krishna, these servants of Krishna, they are eagerly awaiting to serve Krishna. We know when we even Hanuman has this attitude of service to Lord Ramachandra. He's always eagerly waiting. Where's the next opportunity to serve the Lord? And when Lord Ramachandra returned with his associates back to Ayodhya, then in Ayodhya, mm, uh, Lakshman, Bharat, Shatrughna, Mother Sita, they noticed that Hanuman was taking, you know, all the services, and they didn't have any services to perform. So they went to Lord Ram to complain, and they said, "My Lord, I think we need to make a schedule, and anyone's, we should make a schedule, and on the schedule, whoever's name is there, they'll be able to render the different services mm, that we can offer you." So the Lord said, "Okay." So then they all went and they gathered and they created a schedule of every service that can be rendered to Lord Ram, and they allocated all the services to the different devotees and associates, and they left Hanuman out because Hanuman was taking all the services. So they made sure they covered every single service that was there. And the next day they started rendering service according to that list. So Hanuman, he came on the scene, and as soon as he came to enter into the Lord Ram's chamber room, they stopped him and said, "Nope, you cannot come. Only if your name is on this list of services can you come." So Hanuman, he said, "Oh, okay, let me show me this list of services that is there's on the schedule." So he looked at, and he went through all the services, and he looked at all the names, and he was surprised. His name is not there for any service. But Hanuman is also very intelligent. So Hanuman, he looked at his service and he said, "Oh, you people forgot one service." And what is that? Hmm. And that service is anytime the Lord yawns, I need to flick my fingers. Hmm. So they didn't know, Hanuman was very clever. He picked up the service. So they couldn't say no. So they said, "Okay." So Hanuman came. He was next to Lord Ram. And anytime Lord Ram would yawn, Hanuman would flick his fingers. Now evening came, and Mother Sita had to come and do a service. And Hanuman, he didn't leave. And Mother Sita said, "Hanuman, it's time for you to leave." And Hanuman said, "No, my Lord can yawn anytime. And therefore, if he yawns anytime, then I need to be dutiful my service and I need to be present." So here, this pastime was to illustrate how Hanuman, very intelligent but always eager to serve the Lord. Uddhava, the foremost Parisad devotee. His form, his body is blackish, like the color of the Yamuna River, and it is similarly as cool. He is always decorated with flower garlands, first used by Lord Krishna. His devotional mood, Lord Krishna, who is our master and worshipful deity, the controller of Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, and the control of the whole universe as well, except the controlling orders of Ugrasen, his grandfather. He is the proprietor of millions of universes, but still he begged a little land from the ocean. And although he is just like an ocean of wisdom, he sometimes consults me. He is so great and magnanimous, yet he is engaged in his different activities just like an ordinary person. So Uddhava, he's touched by this humility of Krishna. That even though Krishna, he's all powerful, he knows everything, yet still Krishna loves his devotees, his Bhakta Vatsal. He loves to engage and serve his devotees in different services. And the devotees appreciate this wonderful exchange with the wonderful Krishna. Then the Anugat Das devotees, they intimate followers. So now we get even more uh, personal associates, intimate followers. The Anugat Das are the most intimate personal servants of the Lord. And the principal Anugat Dasas of Dwarka, they are Suchendra, Mandana, Stamba, and Sutamba. Their form, they are dressed and ornamented like other associates, so beautifully dressed. And the devotional mood, their specific services entrusted to the Anuga Dasas is varied. Manda, always bears the umbrella over the head of Lord Krishna. Suchandra is engaged in fanning with the white chamara bunch of hair, and Sutamba is engaged in supplying betel nut. So different devotees are engaged in different services. The principal Anuga dasas of Vraja, they are Raktaka, Patraka, Patri, Madhukanta, Madhuvrata, Rasala, Suvilasa, Premakanda, Marandaka, Ananda, Chandraharsha, Prayoda, Bakula, Rasada, and Sharada. And their form, they always stay in Vrindavan, and their bodies are decorated with garlands of pearls and with bangles and bracelets of gold. The colors are just like black bees and the golden moon, and they are dressed just to suit their particular special bodily features. So they have different bodily features. They're dressed in different colors. Um, it's a variety is spice of life, and Vrindavan has all the varieties that you could even that's inconceivable to even consider. And the devotional mood, their specific duties can be understood from a statement by Mother Shoda, who said, Bakula, please cleanse the yellowish dress of Krishna. Varika, you just flavor the bathing water with agru scent. And Rasala, you just prepare the betel nut. You can all see Krishna is approaching. There is dust overhead, and the cows can be seen very distinctly. So in this way, we find Mother Yashoda, she has these personal attendants, personal associates of Krishna who are there to eagerly await Krishna's arrival and to serve Krishna. And they're very happy. This is their life and soul to serve Krishna in these different ways. Raktaka, the foremost of the Anuga devotees. His form, he wears yellow clothing. His bodily color is just like newly grown grass. His devotional mood, Raktaka said, just hear me. Please place me so that I may always be engaged in the service of Lord Krishna, who has now become famous as the lifter of Govardhan Hill. Then we have three types of Parishada and Anugas. The intimate servants of Lord Krishna, who are the Parishad and Anugas in Dwarka and Vrindavan, have three mentalities: Durya, Dhira, and Vira. Srila Prabhupada says, according to the expert analytical studies of direct associates of the Lord, Srila Rupa Goswami has given these into three classes, namely Durya, Dhira, and Vira. So Durya are those who express love towards Krishna, towards the lovers of Krishna, and towards those who serve the lovers of Krishna. Raktaka epitomizes this mentality. Not only is Krishna my worshipful and servable Lord, but also the girlfriends of Krishna, the gopis, are equally worshipful and servable by me. And not only the gopis, but anyone who is engaged in the service of the Lord is also worshipful and servable by me. I know that I must be very careful not to become overly proud that I am one of the servitors and the devotees of the Lord. So very beautiful attitude of Raktaka. And Srila Prabhupada taught us this mentality that we should understand that we should serve not only Krishna, but we should want to serve everyone that's connected to Krishna. So here Raktaka is not only interested just in serving Krishna. Like Prabhupada said, neophyte devotee is only interested in serving the deity. But no, even the associates of the deity, those who are serving the deity, even the living entities who are connected to the deities. So in this way, that is a higher level to serve everyone that's connected. So not the direct associates of Srila Prabhupada, but all the associates of Srila Prabhupada, all the servants of Srila Prabhupada, even those that are new bhaktas that are coming to serve Srila Prabhupada, we want to have the attitude of serving them. And serving them, in one sense, is even greater service to Krishna because it pleases Krishna more. Just like Srila Prabhupada gave the example that if somebody is wealthy, you know, to to serve, to please that person can be very difficult. But if you simply please their children, then immediately they become pleased. So if we serve the devotees of Krishna, then Krishna also becomes exceptional and very pleased by that attitude. So Rakta, he displayed this wonderful attitude of Durya. Then Dhira. Dhira are those who do not have a specific service of the Lord for the Lord, but they are firmly situated in the shelter of a devotee, dear devotee. The son of Satyabhama's nurse exemplified this. He achieved the Lord's mercy not exactly by executing service, but by being in the shelter of the Lord's dear devotees. So this is also another wonderful aspect where we find that someone, he in Srila Prabhupada's uh, time, there were people that never knew Krishna, but they met Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada touched their hearts so much that for them, simply to please Srila Prabhupada was the life and goal. And this is Dhira. They don't have a direct relation with Krishna, but they have a very powerful, strong relationship with Krishna's devotee. So Satyabhama's nurse was in, or the son of Satyabhama's nurse was in this situation. And Srila Prabhupada, in fact, there's few more, in the Nectar devotion, this is described that he was able to, the son of Satyabhama's nurse was able to speak to Krishna very freely, joke with Krishna, serve Krishna in this way. So even though he didn't have a direct relationship with a specific service, serving the Lord, but indirectly, by being connected to Satyabhama and the nurse of Satyabhama, then he had that opportune moment to be with Krishna and have that relationship to serve with Krishna. Then Vira. Vira are those who do not take shelter of anyone besides Sri Krishna. A Vira devotee once declared, Lord Baladev may be a great enemy of Paramasura, but I have nothing to worry about from him. And as far as Pradyumna is concerned, I have nothing to take from him because he is simply a boy. Therefore, I do not expect anything from anyone else. I simply expect the favorable glance of Krishna upon me. And so I'm not even afraid of Satyabhama, who is so dear to Krishna. So it seems like, this type of devotees, uh, they're not. Somebody may say, but why are they making this distinction? They should be willing to serve everyone. But remember, in the spiritual world, Krishna has every variety to give him pleasure. Just like we find Jotila, Kutila. What to go about serving Krishna? They blaspheme Krishna. They criticize Krishna. They call him bad names. Because in the spiritual world, Krishna has all these different grades of devotees and associates to really incite, uh, excite, and enhance all the loving relationships that is there in the spiritual world. So even the Vira devotees, they are only focused on Krishna. We find even the gopis. There's like the left-wing gopis, the right-wing gopis, and they have a different relationship with Krishna. So Krishna has these different categories and divisions, all focused simply to please Krishna, to give pleasure to Krishna in their own different relationships. Then grades of servants, concluding Srila Prabhupada after Srila Goswami gives all these different types and grades of servants. Then Prabhupada concludes this chapter. As mentioned in chapter 25, all of Krishna's servants come into three categories: sadhakas, the neophyte; sadhana siddha, the perfect; and the nitya siddha, eternal perfect. Srila Prabhupada says devotees attached to the transcendental living service of the Lord may be described either as surrendered souls, ashrita, as souls advanced in devotional service, parisada, or as souls completely engaged in transcendental loving service, anuga. Such devotees are called respectively neophyte, perfect, and eternally perfect. So our goal understanding that we are conditioned souls, we are neophytes in the practice of devotional service, is to strive to purify our life and progressively intensify our service to Krishna, and to ultimately become completely pure in our service to Krishna, following in the footsteps of these sadhana siddhas and nitya siddha perfect devotees. So we find in the spiritual world in Vrindavan, the devotees are all engaged in loving service to Krishna. The foundation is service. And then that service in Vrindavan is free from awe and reverence. One can be a friend of Krishna and serve Krishna in that way, or a parent and serve Krishna in that way, or as a lover and serve Krishna in that way. But in Chaitanya Leela, the fundamental and the basis of all the rasas is focused on dasya. So dasya is practically the main rasa in Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's service in Navadvip. That means simply to serve Lord Chaitanya. Everyone is serving Lord Chaitanya in dasya ras. And we find that the highest relationships that one has in the spiritual world, like the highest activity in the spiritual world in Goloka Vrindavan, which is Rasa Leela, that highest activity of serving Krishna in Rasa dance, in Madhurya Ras, that is Sankirtan, congregational chanting in Chaitanya Leela, all based on serving Lord Chaitanya for the pleasure of Lord Chaitanya. And we found Srila Prabhupada establish Krishna consciousness so wonderfully that he made the foundation of service, devotional service to Krishna, engaging the devotees in different services in Krishna consciousness, and ultimately for the pleasure of Lord Chaitanya to spread Krishna consciousness, to practice and to spread Krishna consciousness. This was Srila Prabhupada's expert ability to inspire, encourage, and establish service to Lord Chaitanya. So we should not take our fortune lightly, that we have been given this wonderful opportunity to engage in the mission of Lord Chaitanya and be a servant of Lord Chaitanya. And is described by focusing on that service that we have in the mission of Lord Chaitanya and intensifying that, freeing all mundane motives, and simply trying to serve Hari, Guru, and the Vaishnavas. Then by that connection, we can also enter into Vrindavan. We don't need to separately endeavor. This is the benediction that we have. At the same time, we definitely can aspire to want to serve Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan, and in fact, following the servants of the associates of Lord Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan. That's what we covered in terms of Raganuga Bhakti. So it will evolve, but the basis is our quality of our service should be free from all mundane motives. We should be convinced that I need to serve the Supreme Lord. I am a servant of Krishna. We should be completely convinced of that relationship that I have with the Supreme Lord. And I am a part of the whole. Prabhupada gave the example, the part of a machine is meant to serve the whole machine. So I'm part and parcel of Krishna. Mamai Vamso Jiva Lokya Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. I am Amsa, I'm a part of Krishna. And because I'm a part of Krishna, then I'm meant to serve Krishna. I need to become totally convinced of that relationship. And if I'm convinced of that relationship, then I should act on that relationship. Prabhupada said it's not good enough to know that I am a servant. Just like in Shantaras, there was appreciation. Oh, how wonderful Krishna is. You're appreciating Krishna, but there's no service attitude. That comes in Dasya. So the foundation of our spiritual life is not just bhakti, it's not just love, but is devotional service. Is Prabhupada says love means practical action. Love means action for the pleasure of the beloved. Therefore, Prabhupada didn't just say bhakti, but he said devotional service. There has to be some service. So in Dasya Ras, that um, devotional service is the foundation. And we covered different levels of devotees, different um, categories of devotees that Krishna has that are all in this mood of dasya. Mm. And next week we will cover another aspect of this devotional service. What are the impetus? What really triggers one to serve? Because we want to come to the level of spontaneous devotional service. We don't want an external impetus to trigger that, or we don't want we don't want to be forced, but we want to come to the spontaneity of serving Krishna. So, what are the different impetus, and that we will cover next week. And that brings us to the end of this chapter. We will, if there's any questions, either on the WhatsApp group or on the YouTube, you can type your question. I'll give you 1 or 2 minutes. And if there is no questions, then we'll end here. Okay.